If you ask anyone, they will tell you that we are living in the highest point of human civilization, that we have evolved from hunters and gatherers and cave dwellers to farmers, to the Sumerians, to the ancient Egyptians and the Greeks, through the Renaissance into modern man. And this is the high point societally, technologically, self-awareness, and that we are living in the best of times. But this has more or less been a linear progression. Grains were first cultivated about 10,000 years ago. We saw the first cities about 9,000 years ago. Writing appeared on the scene 5,000 years ago, and so on and so forth. Everyone knows this. Children know this, your grandparents know this. But what if this weren't actually true? What if your assumptions about human evolution were not entirely correct? What if I share with you that there is evidence of other intelligent, highly sophisticated, highly evolved human civilizations that occur previous to this quote-unquote recorded history? What if I share with you that there is dozens upon dozens, if not hundreds upon hundreds, if not thousands of examples that perhaps there have been human civilizations before ours that were highly evolved, maybe with not too dissimilar of a quality of life to what we have right now. Now, this may seem like an odd topic for my channel, which is really about spirituality and finding belonging in your authentic self. But the reason I'm bringing this up and why I think this is so important is there is a theory, and it's a theory that we actually see across cultures. We're going to get into this in a little bit. But there is this theory that human consciousness and human society rises and falls repeatedly, cycling through 4 different stages of human awareness. There have been societies before ours who are more evolved. There'll be societies after ours that will be more evolved. And during those times, we are in a place of greater harmony with ourselves, with the world around us. We are more intuitive, more energetically aware, more psychically capable, and that man is capable of so much more than just what we think. I want to share some insights and opinions about the more advanced humans we may be evolving into, and how perhaps we can tap into that right now and create a better life for ourselves and for each other on this planet at this time, exactly where you are. So hey guys, I am Kaelan, and for today's episode, I am going to be drawing heavily on this amazing book by Joseph Selby and David Steinmetz, who I will actually be interviewing in my next episode. So if you like this, please come back next week to see our conversation that we're having. So let's dive in and start discussing some of these quote-unquote anomalies that have shown up in archaeology that disrupt this linear progression of human evolution over the past few thousand years. Have you ever heard of this place? It is called Gobekli Tepe. It is found in current-day Turkey, and it is this vast, what we believe are temple complexes, because there's no sign of habitation, people did not live there, that take up over 90 acres of space. They've only very, very partially been excavated, but it is conservatively dated to about 9,500 BCE, back before humans even supposedly started cultivating grains. We were just hunters and gatherers. Not only is there evidence that it was in use for 1,500 years, which is a tremendously long period of time, but it was intentionally buried. It was not run over by an avalanche or a landslide. No, the humans who worshipped in or used this space intentionally hid it. For some reason we do not know. But take a deeper look at this thing. These rocks can weigh up to 10 or 20 tons. There are polished terrazzo floors in parts of the complex. I mean, look at these carvings. These carvings look like they could have been made by modern artisans. They don't look like the rough scratches on the walls that we usually think of when thinking about pre-literate, pre-societal man. And I'm personally a huge fan of these 2 statues of these men holding their what seem to be erect phalluses, which suggests to me a connection between spirituality and sexuality, which is one of the main topics of this YouTube channel. Maybe ancient man got it. Our friends downstairs are gateways to the higher self. Have you ever heard of these 2 cities, Mohenjo, Daro, and Harappa? They're 2 Indus Valley civilizations dated to around 3,500 BCE. What's so interesting about them? Well, a few things. Not only do they have rectilinear streets meeting at right angles, very thoughtful city design including public baths, government buildings, grain storage, but there are conduits for fresh water and human waste, including for hot water from local hot springs. They used a standard brick size that not only was consistent across 100,000 square miles, was so well made that they actually were reused thousands of years later by other civilizations that took over this land. And what's even more fascinating is, unlike, say, ancient Rome, as you dig deeper, the layers below don't get more and more primitive. It's actually the opposite. the further down you go, the more sophisticated the building techniques became, suggesting that there's actually been a de-evolution since the height of this society, rather than figuring things out and improving as they went along. Now, how about these famous structures? You have undoubtedly seen these your entire life, so we kind of take them for granted. But do you realize how amazing the pyramids at Giza are? Not only have they stood and maintained their structure for thousands of years, which is a tremendous feat in and of itself, but across the vast base of the Great Pyramid, it does not vary from level more than 7/8 of an inch. The blocks are placed so perfectly close together and honed so evenly that you cannot even slide a credit card between them. We think of the pyramids as being these step structures, but actually, back when they were built, they didn't look like this. They probably looked like this. They were covered in flat, highly reflective marble with a gold cap, and they would shine so bright that they would be beacons for miles and miles away. And they're not actually four-sided, they're actually eight-sided. If you get close, you can actually see the intense amount of detail that went into building these structures. When you go inside, the descending chamber does not vary more than 1/15 of an inch across all 150 feet. There were no signs of burning inside of the Great Pyramid, so how it was lit had to be through some means that was non-combustible, which from our point of view is impossible for this time. And the quote-unquote sarcophagus, we don't really know what it is, inside of the king's chamber, it was never a burial tomb, is honed so finely that it is level within 10,000ths of an inch, something that is tremendously difficult for even modern technology to achieve. Weather erosion on the nearby Sphinx dates it to probably around 7,000 to 5,000 BCE, because that was the only time when there was actually a lot of water and Egypt became fertile, which is much older than that linear progression of human evolution suggests that I shared back when we began this episode. Check out this sculpture. How old do you think it is? What is called the Venus of Brasimpui is dated to probably about 35,000 years ago. In 1969, workers digging in Oklahoma City uncovered a tile floor of intersecting parallel lines, making diamond-shaped patterns. They brought in geologists to confirm that it was in fact man-made. It had a smooth top and a rough underside. And when they tested the mortar between the tiles, it was estimated to be 200,000 years old. These are examples of things that should technically not be possible by modern views of human evolution, yet somehow they exist. And these are just a fraction of the examples shared in this book, which is extremely well cited and researched, so you can really dig deep into where did these things come from and learn more about it. But some of you might be thinking at this point, Kaelan, if there really was all this evidence for previous advanced civilizations, surely we would have seen some of it. Surely we would have uncovered more. Well, first off, we actually haven't uncovered very much of Earth's history. The amount of money and research for archaeology is tiny compared to other branches of science because you don't make a lot of money off of it. But second, even if we were to have the ability to excavate more, do you realize how rough and tumultuous this planet is? Do you know that every single culture on Earth has a myth of a great flood? If every culture has a myth, it suggests it probably happened. In fact, there was this period of about 12,000 years ago called the Younger Dryas, where Earth had reached its glacial maximum, where the glaciers had descended as far towards the equator as they would reach. All of a sudden, a huge flood overtook the planet. There is evidence to suggest it was caused by an asteroid impact, but suddenly many of these glaciers melted and there was a rush of a tidal wave over everything, destroying much. And if you've ever been in a flood situation, you see how incredibly effective water is at wiping out human creation. From supervolcanoes that erupt and black out the sky across the globe for years, nearly killing off all life, to meteor impacts, to floods and earthquakes, our planet can be incredibly destructive and wipe out any sign of human existence in the blink of an eye. More than that, even without major disruptors. Do you know how quickly things decay? If humans were to abandon New York City, it is estimated that within about 1,000 years, all that would remain are just mounds of earth where all these skyscrapers and human inventions had been. Check out the book The World Without Us by Alan Weissman to learn more about how everything we built could disappear just by natural erosion. Like I said earlier, the reason I'm bringing all this up is it makes us ponder what has come before, and then potentially where are we going and what lessons do they have to teach us? To not maybe get so uptight about politics and the fate of things going on right now, when we realize that we are not just part of a human history that goes back a few thousand years, but what if it goes back many millennia? And what can we learn about these quote unquote more advanced societies that potentially lived before us? Because if we look at those traditions that talk about the rising and falling of human civilization and human consciousness, they have some things to teach us. In India, this theory of rising and falling human consciousness is tied to a term called Yugas, the 4 stages of man, descending from a golden age to a silver age to a bronze age to a lead age. Celtic culture also has a 4 ages of men. Not only the Celts, but the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Hopi, the Lakota, the Persians. All of them have this theory of 4 stages of evolution and de-evolution, and all of them agree we are not living in the best of times. We're not even living in the second best of times. All of them say we are either living in the worst or the second worst. Now, according to this Yuga theory, there's evidence to suggest that man reached its nadir, its low point around 500 AD. And if you think about it, 500 AD was a pretty terrible time to be alive. There were no technological innovations for the next few hundred years. People were largely uneducated, no healthcare, no public sanitation. You would be born, live, and die within a few miles of where you spawned. There were very little human rights. Violence was rampant. Not such a fun place. But you go back 1,000 years before, 1,000 years after, things were considerably better. You can definitely see this kind of depression in human wellness, and not just in Europe. Around the world, people were experiencing a similar level of decay, frustration, and lack of wellness. Now, if you dive into this book that I've been suggesting on the Yugas, they say that humanity took a step forward into the second highest in a transition period from around 1600 AD to 1900 AD. And that happens to coincide with the Renaissance in Europe and a lot of technological and societal advancements around the world during that time as well. They describe the age we're entering into as an age of power. And starting in around 1900, take a look at how much our world has changed in regards to power, from discovering electricity to rocket ships, nuclear power, maybe even some breakthroughs with fusion. Einstein discovered that energy and matter were connected, E equals mc squared. We have changed dramatically how we connect with this notion of what is power and how do we harness it. But power isn't just about how we turn on the lights. Power is also about personal power. Look at also how during this time, we have become more and more fascinated with one's personal energy and personal consciousness. Starting in the late 1800s, turn of the 20th century, we see people becoming interested in psychic phenomena with mediums, seances, the occult. As we moved in the 21st century, look at the boom of interest in meditation, Reiki, yoga, hypnosis, channelers, Tai Chi, acupuncture. Like, we have become much more aware of how our bodies and our minds are in deep connection and how our thoughts change health, reality itself. Take a look at the placebo effect. What people are able to do just by believing something and how it changes their physiology is tremendous. Princeton University actually spent 30 years researching the effects of perception, intent, using your mind to affect reality. They created very highly controlled, well-designed tests and discovered that pretty much everyone is able to alter reality, changing the flow of how much water is going through a conduit or which side balls cascade down on something that should be totally random. Just a few examples. They show that pretty much everybody is able to affect reality to some degree. The CIA had Project Stargate, where they used psychically adept people, and this is true, you can look it up, to spy on others, to try and affect world events. They abandoned the project after a few decades, not because it didn't work, and this is key, not because it didn't work, but because it wasn't done with a high enough level of accuracy to make it useful intel. But some of their psychics were able to get up to 90% accuracy. And if this is something you're curious to learn more about, I would recommend checking out 2 books, Real Magic by Dr. Radin, and also The Physics of God by Joseph Selby. When these cultures talk about previous civilizations that were more evolved than us and that we are evolving back into, we are currently on an upswing. They talk about how they are deeply empathic, that they are energetically aware, that their thoughts become reality, that they are in a deep state of immersion and bliss and God consciousness, that they have tremendous telekinetic and telepathic powers, that language will die out because we're able to just communicate mind to mind. And I think we are starting to see glimmers of that. I think we are seeing people start to open to the idea that our thoughts are powerful and our thoughts affect change. What if the future we're evolving into isn't some technological sort of sci-fi thing that we think it will be? What if we end up reverting back more to being deeply connected with the earth, living in small, intimate communities, living simply and lightly on the earth, that we aren't digging up all of Earth's resources and destroying the planet, but we are living in harmony with it, and that our positive psychic energy creates the the food we need, interactions with wildlife and weather? What if we become so energetically aware that we create a heaven on earth? All of these different traditions suggest that that is not only possible, but we have been there and we will go there again. These traditions also suggest that even though mankind as a whole may not be there now, there will always be people who are able to access those higher states or those lower states, regardless of the epoch they're living in. So if we do our own work to evolve and change and tap into that cosmic frequency to harmonize our inner self, to become more energetically aware, then we can manifest a golden age here on earth now exactly where you are. You can create a heavenly abode in the home you live in if you work to focus your mind and dwell on what is eternal within. I know we're living at a time of unparalleled change, and that's actually one of the qualities of this next phase, the second phase from the bottom. It's described as being a time of space annihilation. And we see how everything is coming closer together and faster. We've become a true global society. Your grandparents could not fathom being able to speak face to face with anyone around the world at an instant. They couldn't imagine traveling to anywhere you'd like on the globe in a matter of hours. But the world is becoming smaller, and we're having to change at an unprecedented rate. And that creates a lot of fear. It creates a lot of anger, a lot of frustration. And so what can we do to tap into our better parts, our more evolved spirits, our better angels, as some call it, and dwell in a place of bliss, peace, and joy? Because when we hold that space within ourselves, we change the vibe around us. People can feel it. And when we create a little vortex of love, bliss, openness, joy, we start to change the world in a very positive way. And so by doing this work on ourselves, we can make the world better. So this is my encouragement to you. Do what you can to make the world better. And perhaps we'll find a little bit of that golden age exactly where we are. If you like this, please check out the interview I'm going to be doing with the author of this book. Thank you so much for your time and energy. I'm Kaelan Strauss. I'm an ecstatic life coach. I help people connect with their radiant, joyful selves and live a more blessed life. Thank you for your time, heart, and energy. Best wishes and blessings to you. Bye-bye.